My name is Daniel. I am 37 years old, and I have learned that life does not always go the way we plan. Sometimes it feels like everything we build with our own hands eventually crumbles. But I also learned something deeper: when everything falls apart, it is not the end. It is often the place where God begins. This is my story. I grew up poor. My father worked in construction, and my mother washed clothes for neighbors. We lived in a tiny wooden house that leaked whenever it rained. As a child, I often promised myself, one day, I will build a strong house for my family. A house that will not leak. A house filled with laughter, not worries. Years later, after working hard as a schoolteacher, I finally saved enough to buy a small piece of land. With my own hands, I laid bricks and carried wood. Every nail I hammered, every stone I lifted, carried a dream, a home for my wife, Clara, and our 2 children, Samuel and Ruthie. When we moved in, it wasn't perfect, but it was ours. The walls smelled of fresh paint, the windows opened wide to let in sunlight, and the floors echoed with children's footsteps. For the first time in my life, I felt like I had built something that would last forever. I prayed that night. Thank you, Lord. I finally made it. Please bless this home. May nothing ever take it away. But life doesn't always listen to our prayers the way we expect. At first, everything seemed good. We had meals together, shared laughter, and invited neighbors for tea. But slowly, small cracks began to appear, not just in the walls, but in our lives. The school where I taught faced budget cuts. My salary was reduced, and sometimes it came late. Clara, who sold handmade clothes, found fewer customers because cheaper factory clothes filled the markets. Bills piled up. Arguments began. Clara would say, "Why did you build such a big house? We could barely afford it." And I would reply sharply, "I built it for all of us. Do you want to go back to living in a shack?" Our children, once cheerful, grew quiet during dinner. The house that once echoed with laughter now carried the heavy silence of disappointment. And then, one stormy night, I saw it, a long crack running down the living room wall. Rainwater trickled through. My heart sank. Not again, I thought. Not another leaking house. I patched it up quickly, telling Clara not to worry. But deep inside, I knew the foundation was weak. Months later, after heavy rains, disaster struck. One evening, while we were eating, the walls groaned. Samuel shouted, "Papa, the roof is dripping." Then, before I could react, part of the ceiling collapsed and water poured in. We rushed outside as rain fell heavily, watching in horror as the roof gave way. My dream house, the one I had built with sweat and prayers, was falling apart before my eyes. Clara wept. Ruthie and Samuel clung to her sobbing. I stood frozen, unable to breathe. It felt like my own heart was crumbling with the bricks. We spent that night at a neighbor's house. As I lay on their floor, listening to the storm, anger filled me. "God," I whispered, "why? Why did you let this happen? Did I not work hard? Did I not pray? Why do you take away everything I try to build?" I felt abandoned, humiliated, and useless as a father. The next morning, we returned to see the ruins. The house still stood, but half of it was broken, and the rest was unsafe. I wanted to sit down and cry, but I couldn't. My family needed me. For weeks, we lived in one small room of the damaged house. We cooked outside with firewood. I patched holes with plastic sheets. Clara hardly spoke to me. Samuel avoided my eyes. Ruthie would ask, "Papa, will our house ever be safe again?" Each time she asked, my chest tightened. I had no answer. Neighbors passed by, shaking their heads. Some whispered, "What a pity. He built with his hands, but it didn't last. I felt their judgment like stones thrown at me. I prayed, but my prayers sounded empty. God, where are you? I kept asking, but heaven felt silent. One afternoon, as I sat outside staring at the broken walls, an old man walked by. His name was Elias, a retired carpenter from down the road. He stopped, looked at the ruins, then at me. "You built this yourself?" he asked. "Yes," I muttered, ashamed. He nodded slowly. "Strong hands, but wrong foundation." His words stung. "Are you saying this is my fault?" He shook his head. "Not fault. Just truth. Even the strongest walls will fall if the foundation is weak. You must learn to build again, but this time on rock, not on sand." I didn't answer. But his words followed me like an echo. The next week, Elias returned. To my surprise, he brought tools and said, "Let's rebuild." But not the same way. At first, I resisted. "I have no money." He smiled. "You have hands. God gave you neighbors. Let's see what happens." Slowly, one by one, people came to help. Some brought wood, others cement, others nails. Even Clara, though still hurt, joined in. Samuel and Ruthie carried small stones, their laughter returning as they worked. This time, Elias insisted on digging deeper for the foundation. "If you want it to last," he said, "you must go deeper, even if it takes longer." As we dug, sweat dripping from our foreheads, I realized something: life is the same. My first house fell because I wanted quick results. I thought prayers plus hard work were enough. But I had built on shallow soil, on pride, on self-reliance, on my own strength. Now, God was teaching me to go deeper, to build on faith, patience, and His wisdom, not just my plans. It took months, but slowly the new house rose. Stronger, steadier, simpler. It was not as big or as fancy as my first one, but this time, it was secure. One evening, when the work was done, Clara sat beside me. She said softly, "Maybe God allowed the first house to fall so we could learn to build not just walls, but a family again." Her words broke me. Tears rolled down my face. For the first time in years, I prayed not with complaints, but with gratitude. "Thank you, Lord. You took away my pride, but you gave me something stronger: faith, love, and unity." Samuel and Ruthie played nearby, their laughter filling the air. Clara leaned on my shoulder. And I realized, the real house God wanted to rebuild was not made of bricks. It was the home inside our hearts. Now, when people pass by our home, they see more than walls and a roof. They see a story. They see that failure is not the end. They see that sometimes God allows our plans to fall apart so He can rebuild them stronger. They see that discouragement is not proof of God's absence, it is often the very tool He uses to draw us closer to Him. Whenever storms come now, and rain hits our roof, I smile. I no longer fear collapse, because I know the foundation is strong. And not just the foundation of my house, but also the foundation of my faith.
Daniel's story tells us that life will bring storms. Our plans may fall apart. The walls we build with our own strength may crack and collapse. But when that happens, don't lose hope. Don't think God has abandoned you. Sometimes He lets our little houses fall apart so He can teach us to build on rock, not on sand. His plan is always greater than our own. So when your life feels like rubble, when your dreams lie in ruins, remember, God is not finished. He may be preparing to rebuild something stronger, deeper, and more beautiful than you ever imagined.